Good evening, fellow morons. We have look like we've lost Craig on the screen already. Guys, you wouldn't think that we spend 30 minutes before we go live on this to make sure that everything's absolutely working fine. In the last 5 minutes, Craig has been there, and now he's not there. So you have 4 morons on the screen, and we've got Burnsy lurking in the background somewhere. But welcome into Hunter's Week. Hunter, we're going to jump in straight away, ask you what were the movies, talk us through some of the movies that you chose that actually never made the cut, if you can remember.
Well, the first one that never made the cut was There Will Be Blood, and I'm amazed at that. Not only did it not make the cut, but what beat it as well. Prisoners was put in as fodder, just like I thought I'll chuck it in against something that it's just to make up the numbers, and it's ended up marching all the way to being victorious. Almost Famous as well, that was another one. They were probably the two that I was wanting to watch this week, but our fellow morons from the Instagram have selected Prisoners and Inglorious Basterds for our viewing choices this week.
Yeah, absolutely. So Prisoners and Inglorious Basterds. Daniel, you were on an Instagram again this week. What was the interaction like when it came to the voting?
Yeah, so again we're hitting about 600 votes every week, so that's appreciated. I think people like to. Sometimes I feel like they're working against us on purpose, but we've got to take that on board and deal with it and review what we get. I was quite surprised as well by the end result of I thought Inglorious Basterds had a very good chance for the start, but Prisoners was a shock to me. I thought of the 16 movies, I thought this would have been 16 in any voting personally, but that's what we've got.
Well, that's it. So, guys, Prisoners is the first movie that we're going to talk about today, and we've also got Inglorious Basterds to discuss as well. But before we hop in and talk about Prisoners as well, I think it's important that we give you a little bit of a background for those that haven't seen it. So this is a movie that is starring Jake Gyllenhaal, everyone's favourite coyote, and also starring Hugh Jackman. It was set in 2003 for 2 hours and 33 minutes. The synopsis is that when Keller Dover's daughter and her friend goes missing, he takes matters into his own hands as the police pursue multiple leads and the pressure mounts. Scoring an incredibly high 8.1 out of 10 on Instagram, which is a 4.05 on the moron scale. But Hunter, you were the one that was responsible for these, so you give us your thoughts first of all.
I will take part responsibility. I thought we could have put it up again. We put it up against Inglorious Basterds and it might not have won. So I'll take part responsibility for putting it.
So you're blaming the guy that runs the Instagram, basically, is what you're saying?
No, see, just to clarify, I let Hunter decide the brackets for the final, so...
What did it beat again? What was the film that it beat?
There Will Be Blood.
And what did Inglorious Basterds beat?
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So the other Tarantino film.
Aye, so it was a case of really wanting to have 2 Tarantino films. I think that was the thinking behind it, but it would obviously been a better shout than Prisoners anyway. But without being too negative again, I think that this film is better than Nightcrawler, which we watched the other week. It wasn't the first time that I'd seen it. Going through, I did think it's kind of frustrating how how all the crumbs they left throughout the film sort of all tied up at the end, like with the missing boys. There was no, when they find that body in the priest's basement, which then turns out to be that woman's husband at the end, and he's like, they've killed all these 23 or whatever, the number of kids which they've sacrificed in their fight against God. The only ones that it touched on in the film were all somehow tied in with the storyline that was going on. There was a lot more happened with those going into their background, which I thought might have been a bit more. It did the wee sort of twists in that even towards the end, where you think, oh, is it actually Hugh Jackman that's in the words? He doesn't know what he's done, is he went delirious or something? And then you get the other twist. It's enough to sort of keep you interested, but when you look back and then you analyse it after watching it, you realise that the crumbs are there all the way through, and then it's quite easy to work out in the end. With Jake Gyllenhaal, he's like even though he's the good guy, still came across as a prick again in this film. So, that's my thoughts on it.
So, Hunter, if you were to select a certain person that was your favourite out of the whole movie from the actors that was in it, who would it be?
Like with Hugh Jackman, like what he does, obviously, locking that boy up and absolutely beating him to within an inch of his life, then he's not really a nice person, but obviously there's reasons behind why he's done what he's done. It still doesn't justify his actions, though. The best character in the film, I don't know, maybe his pal, whose other daughter goes missing, Paul, with him, the best of a bad bunch.
Best of a bad bunch?
Yeah, a bad bunch, I think, is a good way of putting it. Like, I don't think there's a single likeable character in this film. Like, everyone's just a bit of a cunt. Like, Jake Gyllenhaal comes across like a bit of a dick. Hugh Jackman comes across like a complete dick. The other father, just the fact that he knows that Hugh Jackman's kidnapped this guy and he's tortured him, he's clearly against it, but he's too much of a pussy to stand up to Hugh Jackman. So he goes and gets his wife, and then his wife says, no, it's cool, so he just lets it all happen. Obviously the mum, or the older woman who's been responsible for it, was a dick. The other guy that came, that was getting chased, that was a wee sort of side story, he was a creepy weirdo. Like, there wasn't anyone I was sort of rooting for at any point in this film. Like, I didn't really know where I wanted it to go.
See, I thought Paul Dano was brilliant. I think he's brilliant in those types of roles that he plays. He plays that person with the learning difficulties who's not your stereotypical person that you see on acting, and he plays it down to a T, which is why he'll be such a good Riddler. Is it Riddler he's going to play when he goes into the Batman universe? He's going to be incredible. He was definitely my favourite in there. But I get what you're saying about Terrence Howard's character, because when you've got the Suicide Squad's Amanda Davies as your wife, you're going to have to listen to her. You're going to have to call out what she does. But sorry that I interrupted you there to back up Paul Dano, because I think Paul Dano is a very, very underrated actor.
No, I do agree. I think his performance is good, but I mean, it is very limited. I'd much rather that. See how I forget who plays him, but he also always plays a creepy guy. The one that turned up at the sort of shrine, and then Jake Gyllenhaal saw him and chased him. He always plays a weirdo creep as well, and I feel like they could have done without that. Like that whole section of the film could have been, you could have just taken him out and given us more of Paul Dano.
I'll give you £500. I'll give you £500 right now if you can tell me that actor's name.
Oh, I never could. But he always plays a weirdo, because he's got that weird face.
Yeah, he's David Dalchmachen.
There you go. I would never have got it. Weirdo face. Is
most known for being one of the Joker's thugs in The Dark Knight.
Yeah. So that's obviously you recognise his face for The Dark Knight. He's a creepy weirdo in that as well. But that was where this kind of lost it for me a wee bit. I think it made it too obvious that Paul Dano's character hadn't done it. Like, it became very clear quite early. So like, what Hugh Jackman was doing felt like it had no merit. It just felt like he was now, instead of concentrating on getting his daughter back, he's just torturing this local learning disabled kid. And the fact that the kid didn't actually tell him anything when he's getting tortured, when really he sort of, it was him that opened up to Hugh Jackman in the first place in the parking lot, saying they only started crying when I left them. Mm-hmm. And then after that, he did that under no duress whatsoever. And then later on, when he's getting tortured, they won't tell him anything. But that didn't really make much sense to me. But yeah, I think there's a lot of good aspects to this, but it's overshadowed by a kind of overly messy storyline and plot for me a wee bit.
I get what you're saying there. So for me, right, I do enjoy this movie. I've seen this a few times, and I think it's one of those ones as well when you think, I always try to put myself into that actor's shoes, and put yourself into Hugh Jackman's shoes at that point where his children have been taken and he's in grief, panic and scared mode at that point, and he's thinking, this little guy who's got learning difficulties has information, right? he's not outright saying it's you, I know it's you, but he knows something. And for me, I think it's such good acting in scenes between Hugh Jackman and Paul Dano in it, because Hugh Jackman's perfectly outlaying the sheer frustration and anger that a dad's playing about losing his children, and the panic and the fear, and the way that people deal with that is through violence. And like, you always hear that as well, like, what would you do if such and such did this to you? Well, I'd do this to them. And it's that anger and that reaction and that fight, and the only thing you can think of is beating it out of them as well.
Okay, also interrupt you, is that I would have said that his character, though, he blatantly lied to his wife throughout it of what was going on. Like, he obviously just showed no care for her. Like, he was like, oh, I was just helping the police. Well, you weren't. You were going to just beating this boy to death. Which took the other guy to tell his wife for him to obviously get inside it, as Daniel had touched on. But I thought that was a big problem with the parents' characters. Was that the fact he just kept in for his wife too? Whereas you're saying, I get what you're saying about how his reaction would be, but you wouldn't expect him to just go into hiding and not tell his wife anything that's going on.
See, I think you're looking at that very logical though. You've given it a very logical explanation about what he should do, and this guy will be going through emotions of feeling like guilt and anger at the same time, and he's the dad. He's going to fix it, and he wants to resolve it, and he knows ultimately what he's doing is wrong, and he'll go to jail for it, and he'll spend time, and he's probably a bit embarrassed and disgusted by the way that he's dealing with it. And I don't know, if I was in that situation and I've got someone locked up that I'm trying, I don't know if I would spill to my partner that.
But the thing that I would say that maybe goes against your argument, that obviously all the emotions that he's going through, which I get, right, and see when he first starts to try and batter them in the parking lot and all that, fair enough, right, but it's too meticulous. Like, see if you're full of all this rage and emotion about everything that's happened, right? This is where the disconnect happened for me a wee bit, right? Fair enough, going and getting them and tying them to the radiator, right, and battering them the first night, and then see at that point, once you got nothing out of them, I think a more believable character would be that the panic would start setting in and what he had done. But instead, he spends all this time building a torture chamber for them. Like, that's not the behaviour, to me, of a panicked dad who's really desperate to get his daughter back. That's a psychopath. Like, to me, Hugh Jackman's character is a fucking psychopath who happens to lose his daughter, and that's kind of at the side of it.
Yeah, because he's definitely got to that point where he's decided, irrespective of what's going on, and all those logical arguments that you guys are saying about he shouldn't do this, and he was aware, and he's preempted, and he has preempted a lot of it. I just feel like he's set. That's it. There's nobody else in the world that this could have been. He's going in. That's the guy that's got the information that leads to his daughter, and he's going to beat out of him. As stupid as that comes across. I'm just going to interrupt for a second to say a big thank you to Jerry for his subscription with his Prime, making it 2 months as well. But an even bigger thank you to the Bearded Ginger for his 3 months as well. I think everybody should go follow the Bearded Ginger 87, because he guy's an absolute fucking legend. Sorry guys. Sean, I want to hear from you on this, mate.
I'd seen it before, but it was many years ago that me and Laurie had watched it. So a lot of, like, I could remember the kind of how it ended and stuff like that, but a lot of the stuff in the middle I'd kind of forgotten about. Jake Gyllenhaal, the way that he plays his characters, I don't know what I meant about this, but there's just no. It's as if he's blaming the parents for this child going missing. He's just a total wanker, and all that stuff we had about Nightcrawler and stuff like that. Like, it's nothing to do with that. I don't particularly like him at all. Like, I just don't like him one bit. It's interesting what he's saying about Hugh Jackman and stuff like that, because the way that I've seen it is that there's two things that I've led me to believe that this boy's response to it was when he was singing that song, the Christmas song that the girls had been singing in the house, and also obviously said that they only cried when I left or something, and the mum knows at the end that he had nothing to do with it, but he knew what had happened.
I think he got them back.
So he was in the camper van, they went in the camper van, so he had a part to play in it. So the way that I'm looking at it is that Hugh Jackman's character, he knows, as Kerry said, if I put myself in that position, and I'm not a violent guy at all, but you would like to think that he knows. There's no other explanation for him saying the only character I have plus he's singing the same song they were singing in the morning that they vanished. That to me, I would do everything I could to get something out of that guy as well, because I know that he knows something. Maybe it's not him that's done it, but he knows something. So I don't really see. I can understand obviously it was very, very over the top and stuff like that. But again, like it's quite a horrible situation to be in. Not one that any of us have ever been in, and obviously, hopefully, would never ever are. So you don't really know how you're going to react in that situation, I feel. Especially when it comes to your own kids and stuff like that. Like, I've not got a child, so I can't really imagine. But you know what I'm trying to say. But I never really that never really bothered me too much. It was quite gruesome, some of the scenes in that, like when he took the bag off his teeth and his face is just an absolute mess. Like, I was eating dinner at the time, that's just a bit of a shite bag. But no, I can remember the first time I watched it, I thought this is really long, and I felt that way again. I definitely think that 2.5 hours for a kind of missing persons kind of type film is, you kind of lose interest towards the end. I never really kind of thought for a second that the girls had died, even when they obviously they pulled the clothing and stuff like that, and they said there was obviously his daughter's sock and stuff like that. And I can remember thinking that the first time I watched it, there wasn't a point in the film that I thought they were dead, because it would just be such an anticlimax, and you don't often get that in films. But it was just too long for me. Jake Gyllenhaal, I didn't want to see his face for fucking a very, very long time. The animal that he portrayed his character on was a fucking rat in this film.
Wasn't a snake that I cleverly alluded to last week, that it would be a snake?
Just a horrible person to watch. For me, I just can't stick him. He's very one-dimensional.
So next week we're watching Donnie Darko and Brokeback Mountain. You looking forward to that?
Nah. No. But I just don't think really. I just kind of struggle to watch him. Hugh Jackman, I think, is really good. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. And I thought he played the part really, really well as a kind of grieving, confused, scared dad would. And I thought the mum was brilliant too. She kind of was like polar opposite. Like she basically just kind of went almost insane, and like to the point where she was. When that guy broke into the house and he was obviously getting the sock and stuff like that, I thought that they were going to turn around and say, "Oh, you just told him shite," basically, because she was just delusional after obviously her daughters went missing. But no, I kind of fairly enjoyed it, but it was just a bit too long. I think the whole sideshow, as you said, Daniel, about the guy, there was no real need for that. That was again just to kind of make you think that the girls were dead. It didn't really add much, and I don't think that all the kind of missing boys and everything from the past, although it does play its part in the story, I don't think that needed to be solved through that guy.
Yeah, I think that's
just in life.
That's it. That's the only. I did quite enjoy this. I know it's coming across like I didn't, but that's the bit. I think you could cut 45 minutes out of this. The whole, because it starts to feel really convoluted when suddenly there's a priest and a dead body, and let's focus on his necklace, and then you never hear of it again until the end of the film.
All that mad stuff was
just make it a basic standard. You've got your crazy psychopathic local that gets kidnapped by Hugh Jackman because he thinks it's him, and the psycho mob who's actually doing it. That's enough. I mean, you could probably have developed the mum a bit more, like, I keep saying the mum, but like the woman who'd actually done the kidnapping. Yeah. The main villain. I feel like when the twist came, I sort of just went like, oh, rather than like, because she was never developed as a character in any way. It was just thrown in at the end. So see if it had something about her, maybe more about Paul Dano's character's upbringing or something like that, where you could get a wee bit to know about her. And she wasn't even bothered that her son was missing.
That's what I said. It was me. It was nothing. I think they've only kind of done that just to try and have that kind of shock value. It was only in like 3 or 4 scenes before it just with a very small part. And I think they just left it like that on purpose to kind of give it more of a kind of like not as much a shock value because she's not an important character up to that point, but to try and help people not guess what's going to happen and things like that. Because there wasn't really any, well, as far as my kind of simple-minded brain told me, there was nothing really that put me in her direction for being the culprit and stuff like that. Obviously, it's all focused on this one boy who definitely knows something, but even if I remember right, when I watched it the first time, I didn't think that it was going to be his aunt or whatever she was to him. You just kind of thought that maybe he worked with another kind of local paedophile or something like that, which was playing off in this film.
Yeah.
Fair play, guys. Anybody else want to give some more of their thoughts about this, the actors, how it was portrayed, what the movie was like?
I liked a wee bit more. It's like, I didn't think Hugh Jackman was good at all. The only one was his wife that I thought was pretty decent in it. And then, like, as I sort of touched on before, it's like, I didn't have any... You went into the film expecting to have loads of sympathy for the families, but the only one I actually felt sympathy for was the Hugh Jackman's wife, but the rest of them was kind of the way they'd acted. Like, the guy was kind of just didn't. The other guy who wasn't Hugh Jackman, could come in his name, he didn't really do anything. Hugh Jackman just, he just sort of stood there in the corner and watched everything go on and just went, "Oh, we shouldn't really be doing that." But I'll watch it anyway. I'll back you up with whatever happens. It was like he was pointless. Jackman was just over the top in terms of, like Daniel had said, like planning stuff. But it was as if he was just wanting to have this person to actually finding out what had happened to his daughter at points for me. And I thought the amount of scenes that there was at his grandparents' house, you could easily cut them down so much because you weren't getting anything out of them. It was just more just him being punched about and going in the shower and just getting like scalded and all that. It just didn't add into the story. It was just like, I'm still not telling you. And for me, I had an inkling, to be honest, about who that it was going to be his aunt was the person that had stolen the girls, etc. I think because her nephew was how he said that they were fine until I left them, and I was thinking he must be involved, and I was like, that's the only part of his family who has been involved. So I actually had a feeling throughout the films it wasn't as like a shock for me towards the end, which kind of made me not enjoy it as much. But it was decent, but it wasn't. It was far too long, like discussed before, and it wasn't edge of the seat stuff at any point.
See, just one more thing as well. See, obviously she had the girls underneath the car and the ground and stuff like that. We never really got to see how kind of deep that was, but I just didn't kind of buy into that stuff. If you get kidnapped and stuff like that, you're going to be screaming and going to be a lot of noise. I just didn't. And you can hear any visitors that are going to be coming and going. You can hear cars going and you hear people talking and stuff like that. Like,
well, they did they're showing with the whistle though, didn't they?
I know, but like again, like that part in itself is just like, he's been there for fucking. Because obviously, so basically, it ended with him, Jake Gyllenhaal taking the lass to the hospital. Obviously, the guy's Hugh Jackman's in the ground, so he's went to the hospital. He's then recovered from his hospital. He's then back with the forensic team who dug up. Who are fucking, obviously they can't dig into the ground, it's too hard, so that kind of alludes that Hugh Jackman's been in the ground for at least a few days.
Right.
So you're telling me, well, these people are working there, he's not heard any of this, and he's not heard that whistle at that point. I just didn't buy it. I don't think there's any need for that part.
Again, yeah, extra stuff added on. And just to add on, they had, when they took Paul Daniel into custody the first time when he was suspect number one, right? They had him for 48 hours, was it? They had to let him go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Surely they had all the forensics out of the house at that point. Right?
That's basic.
Basic stuff, right? So how you're going to say go and move that car?
I know.
It's just there's a car there. We're not going to search that bit.
Do you know what is well, right? So obviously, as I said, me and Molly have watched this before. And she just couldn't remember anything for it at all. She couldn't remember who fucking done it or anything. But obviously, with the final scene where you've got Jake Gyllenhaal kind of standing there conveniently after the kind of forensic guys have left, and he's like hearing this whistle, and he's like, oh, no, and he hears it again, and then it just ends. Laurie goes, oh, so going to be a prisoner's coup? I went, that'd be a great one. They moved the car to find them at the end. And then just watch him
Hugh Jackman is an actual prisoner in jail, which is gone for beating up white within an inch's life.
Just fighting folk all the time. So guys, do we have anything else we want to add to this movie itself?
I'm ready to score it, I think.
Yeah, I'm ready with this.
But guys, just before we jump into scoring, I obviously have went and found some trivia from it. Wasn't actually that much that was overly interesting, but one of the things there was that Detective Loki's tattoos. Don't know why we've not brought up the fact that his name was Loki. That was dead. Like,
I know, man, that was shite.
Wow, that annoyed me. But his Detective Loki's tattoos, his Freemason ring, and his facial tics, which, as Sean will be glad to hear, were all Jake Gyllenhaal's idea.
Laurie did mention the blinking thing, and I just thought that was just like what it was like.
No, he actually purposely decided to do that as part of his character.
It adds absolutely nothing.
Jake Gyllenhaal would have been better as the weirdo dad, and Hugh Jackman as the policeman in this.
Well, originally,
what does him having a tick actually, or a just blinks all the thing? What does that add to his character at all? Nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
See, this is what I'm talking about. Him, right? Him in that Nightcrawler film about whatever they fucking said that he based his character on, some animal. It's just absolute nonsense. It's pure egotistical pish. He actually thinks that makes a difference to his character in the film. It absolutely doesn't. My girlfriend just thought that he had a tick. That's all it was. She got a tick. That's it. Nothing else. What, do you think that's going to get him an Oscar?
I think he does. That's what he's aiming for with all of these things.
Delusional, man. Absolutely delusional.
He does strike me as he's an Oscar chaser, Jake Gyllenhaal. He really wants to be a Best Actor winner at an Oscars.
Well,
it's not going to happen.
Well, it was very far away from it from this point. The only Oscar it was nominated for was Best Achievement in Cinematography. But the films that were nominated for Best Picture that year were 12 Years a Slave, which was the winner, and such really good movies like Captain Phillips, American Hustle, Dallas Buyers Club, Her, The Wolf of Wall Street was the same year.
That's a great year.
Gravity, Nebraska, Philomena, all on there is really an incredibly strong year. One actor that was originally attached to the project for a long time and dropped out quite late was Leonardo DiCaprio.
So was he going to be Jake Gyllenhaal's character?
I would imagine so. There was also two actors that were offered the role first of all, but they decided to opt out and make the film The Fighter instead, which was Mark Wahlberg and Christian Bale were supposed to play the two.
See, we slag Mark Wahlberg off, right? I think he would play quite a good angry dad. Like, I think he'd have been quite good at this, whereas, and obviously Christian Bale's good at everything.
Christian Bale can do no wrong in the eyes. So guys, let's then move on to scoring it. As I said earlier, it was an 8.1 on Instagram, on IMDb, which make it a 4.05. But Hunter, it was your choice. You kick us off with your thoughts on how to score Prisoners.
Right, it's slightly above average for me, so I'm going for a 2.75.
2.75 from the Untsman, who selected this one. Burnsy, do you want to give us your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going slightly below average, so I'm going 2.25.
2.25 from the Bengal TT. Daniel?
I know that Shutter Island ended up at 1.7, so I think it's slightly better than that, so I'm giving it a 2.
A 2. Sean?
Just a straight in the middle, 2.5. I didn't not enjoy it, I just felt it should have been shorter.
A 2.5 from Sean. And I'm going to throw it in at 2.75. Did enjoy it. Not one I'd rush back to see though. So,
you've watched that about 6 times, you know?
I've seen it a lot. I've watched it recently as well before watching it again. But I won't hurry back.
Start watching some new stuff, Kyle. Fuck's sake.
Listen, I'm a simple man. Burnsy, what does that bring us into then?
That's a 2.45.
A 2.45. So if we then jump over to the leaderboard itself, of course the leaderboard is still sitting very similar to as it was last week. the movies from last week did not enter the fray to make a difference to the top 10. We did have last week, what was it? Ace Ventura and at a 2.6, and we had Mrs. Doubtfire at a 3.65 coming in at 13. So a 2.45 will then enter us in directly in between Wreck-It Ralph and Knives Out. Thoughts on that, boys?
I'd much rather watch Wreck-It Ralph again. I feel like Knives Out is too high scored by a couple of folk really liked that in here, and I hated it, so I find it hard to.
I was mentioning that to Mum yesterday about Knives Out, and I said to her I really enjoyed that. I think I was one of them because I recommended it.
I think I liked it. I'm sure Jerry did. At the time Jerry was here, Jerry liked it as well.
No,
I don't know if we've redone it on a midweek one or that though. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we did. You were absent, Sean. You were absent as usual.
One of Sean's many annual leave days off that only Sean gets. So guys, that then brings us to a 2.45 for Prisoners, drawing that to an end, taking us on to our next movie. So Hunter, introduce what the next movie was. Just let us know what it is, and then I'll give a little bit of a synopsis about it.
So this was Inglorious Basterds, which I also believe is the first Tarantino film which we reviewed on the stream as well, which is I was quite glad we managed to get one of his films in. So again, that was one that I was looking forward to watching this week.
Absolutely. And this movie, Inglorious Basterds, has the same running time as Prisoners, which is a funny comparison, that the fact that they are both 2 hours and 33 minutes exactly. I thought that was quite cool. So Inglorious Basterds, out in 2009, in Nazi-occupied France during World War II, a plan to assassinate Nazi leaders by a group of Jewish US soldiers coincides with the theatre owner's vengeful plans for the same. As said by Hunter earlier, it is directed by Tarantino and starring some really good actors like Brad Pitt, Eli Roth, Diane Kruger, Christoph Waltz, who played an absolute blinder, and Baron Zemo's in there as well.
Yeah.
Mike Myers.
Mike Myers. Fair play. Michael Fassbender getting left out there. Go on, Hunter. Take us away with your thoughts initially, please, my friend.
Alright, I love this film. I'm glad it's been a few years since I watched it, so I almost got to watch it without sort of remembering too much of it as I went through it. Like, firstly, you touched on it already, Christoph Waltz is absolutely outstanding in this. He's a Nazi lieutenant, corporal, captain, whatever he is, so he's one of the highest levels of cunt that a guy can be for being that far up in the Nazis. But he's got such a comedic styling with his mannerisms and the way he talks, and he's just superb. And I love Brad Pitt as well. I know we've sort of touched on it sort of off screen with his accent, and he's just superb throughout it as well. I love the fact how it's you've got the two stories. You've got was it Sassona? What was her name again? Her Jewish name, I can't remember. Obviously, she escapes.
Shoshana.
Shoshana. When she escapes, obviously she's hatched, but just by chance, when you've got is it Zoella? I can't remember the actor's name.
Zoella, I think you're right.
Aye, so he comes. It's just like a weird coincidence, and these plans are now sort of intertwining, and it's all coming up to this big crescendo at the end. It's just so well done throughout, and you've got obviously way Christoph Waltz's character thinking he's been so conniving and cunning and thinks he's getting away at the end, and then just that bit where Brad Pitt's scarring him at the end. I think that bit we actually see the lacerations through the top of his head. Well, that was the only bit through it I thought I think was gruesome was that bit right at the end. They cut right into the top of his skull. But I mean, I can't find many faults in this at all. I love this film and I'll easily watch it again.
It stands out to me, like I always remember the opening scene is just one of my favourite scenes in the films. I just absolutely love it. And again, the scene in the pub as well, where they're in the bar. It's just two absolute masterpieces. just I could just watch those two scenes like just over and over again all the time. I just absolutely love them. And again, I love this as well. I remember the first time I watched it, I was just like never took my eyes off the screen once, just absolutely blown away. I just think it's an absolutely brilliant film. It's like it's so well done. It's just I don't really know what else to say. I can't really say it. It's just really good. Those two scenes, I can't speak highly enough of them. I just think they're absolutely brilliant. It's especially the opening one. Like, I think a lot of people talk about the scene in the pub and stuff like that, and rightly so, because it's so tense, it's just brilliant. But the opening scene, it just sets the tone of the film. It's just fucking tremendous. It's just so good.
It's so good, man.
So good.
You take the two things I had written down, Sean, were the pub scene and the opening scene. Right?
I like to get early. I knew it.
It's good to get my own stuff stolen for the team. But yeah, I just want to double down on that. I think that opening scene is one of the best things in cinema ever. Like, I know that's maybe a bit extreme, but I think it's unbelievable, man. And Christoph Waltz is one of the greatest actors ever. Like, he doesn't do all that much. I mean, he picks and chooses his films really well. And there's something about another scene that maybe gets forgotten about, right? But he even manages to make eating dessert really sinister. But you can't take your eyes off. You can't take your eyes off at him like eating a dessert. So good, man. Like it's a lesson in how to captivate people. Eventually we're going to get to watch Django as well, and he's the best thing in that too, and that's an amazing cast. This is an amazing cast. And I think Christoph Waltz stands up out head and shoulders above everybody as being the best thing in this. And see just the coolness of him at the end, where obviously it doesn't work out for him, neither it should, he's an nasty bastard, right? But the coolness of him when he figures out what's going on and he's sitting with Brad Pitt across the room, that he's negotiating his own surrender, he just never loses his composure. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's always, and that's probably what makes you realise he's like the most evil guy. Do you know what I mean? Everything he does is so like calculated and meticulous, and when he's talking to them, and go back to the first scene when it slowly builds up and builds up for us as viewers, right? Christoph Waltz does not change. Do you know what I mean? It's the exact same tone all the way through it. So that guy's bullshit isn't going to get him anywhere, and you can slowly see the French guy realising, like, shit, like I'm not getting anywhere. This guy's fucking got me. Do you know what I mean? He's clocked me. And then it's fucking brutal. The fact that he loves to be called the Jew Hunter and explains why he likes it and tells you about it all, and it gives you so much background to that movie. Like, so a lot of movies struggle to introduce characters, right? The way he's introduced in this is amazing. You know that any time he's on screen, it's going to be something mental. The same way when Brad Pitt and all of them get the Nazi hunters, essentially the Basterds, when they all get introduced, they give you a great scene that tells you everything that they're all about. Where they get a guy, they try to tell him where the snipers are, then the bear Jew comes out and smashes him in the head with a baseball bat. You know instantly in that scene, like, okay, that's what these guys are all about. I understand. It's quite, I don't want to say simple, because it's
just to the point.
Aye. It doesn't ask about, and this is 2 hours, this is the exact same length of time as Prisoners, you say.
Yep, spot on.
You would never think it. There's no dead air. There's no dead time in this movie. Everything's meaningful. Like, every scene matters. I couldn't imagine cutting anything out of this. I don't know about you guys, but I couldn't imagine the film with anything out of it. I just think this is wonderful. And I avoided watching this for years. I just didn't think I would fancy it. Like a Tarantino alternate history on the Nazis, it just seemed a bit like, I wasn't that interested. So when I first watched this, I just kind of wanted to put it on in the background, and it blew me away. Like, I think it's class. In fact, no, I'll let you get to the figure before I say that.
Listen, you guys just keep going there. Just as we come to a little halt there, Hellboy Richie, thank you very much for the follow. We do appreciate that. I'm going to pass it over to Burnsy first before I share my thoughts.
Aye, cheers. I'm sort of covering some of the stuff before you've already said. It's like at the very start, it's the first time I'd seen this, and the first scene, I was watching it, and then it went to obviously said it was going to be it was like chapters. I think it was 6 or 7 chapters or something. and when it went to chapter 2, I thought to myself, is this going to be something like Ballad of Buster Scruggs again or something? I just let a big sigh because I was like, tell me that, because obviously the story was kind of half finished. Obviously it would have been a really fit story to do that in terms of how Tristana just ran away. But that was what I was thinking, and what Daniel had said about Walks as well is it was touched on that somebody else had been at the property before, and he had managed to obviously just keep the Jews hidden under the floorboards, whereas he'd also got worn down basically by Walks, which meant he ended up admitting who they were, which, like you say, it just showed how well he played his character too. And I think I'm invested basically throughout it. The bit about Sean mentioned about the pub scene, and also the fact that it was the Basterds and Tristana both involved in the scene at the theatre, that was interesting too. But the only bit I was looking at, I was like, this is like, how has this happened? Is, you know, when the lassie Bon Hammersack, and she just turns up with Brad Pitt and the two others, and they've got these Italian accents on, and I'm like, there's no way. Like, after seeing them, if this is going to be such a high level viewing, I think it would take every precaution, and she's just allowed to come up with 3 folk that are clearly Italian and just let them into the place. That just seemed really bizarre for me, but I let that go completely because it was really, really good. The only bit which was a small downside, this is my own personal opinion, when Hunter said about how it was a bit gruesome at the end. It was quite a few times I struggled with how gruesome it did get, but that's just because that's just what I'm like with those kind of films, like a lot of sort of blood and guts and things like that. But I could definitely understand how other people wouldn't have that opinion.
See the scalping, see what sort of put off the actual scalpings I don't think
that was a bit Sean. But that was all I did anyway, but that was it was just a bit too gruesome at points for me.
Oh God! Wait till you see other Tarantino movies, Bonzo.
Then I watch Reservoir Dogs, whatever you do.
Well, we're going to watch it at some point.
So, actually asked me today, I've seen Reservoir Dogs. That's what he said when I said to him that I'd watched Inglorious Basterds. So he must have known what it was.
Reservoir Dogs is definitely worth a watch. So I feel like I'm going to lower the tone a little bit, guys.
Here we go.
There's always one of us a week, so that's going to be that guy a week.
See, talking to you last night, I knew you weren't going to like it. I mean, Jerry said he didn't like it. I knew you were just waiting to fucking slate it. This is, honestly, this is like a Bundy moment with No Country for Old Men.
You're like coming there.
So, it took me a long time to watch this movie. There were so many points where I got bored watching it. Now, I get the opening scene's quite good, right? It is good.
Quite good.
With the French guy, it's really long drawn out, and I know that that's the whole point of it. The bar scene is incredibly overrated, and I was not the biggest fan of that. I didn't think that was as good as what it was suggested. Now, Sean told me that the opening scene was the best scene ever made in cinematic history, and I was like, fuck, give me the Dark Knight over that, like... I don't know give me the Dark Knight. Give me the opening scene for the Dark Knight with the Joker over that. 100%. Everything.
Wait,
robbing a bank.
A guy robbing a bank.
Aye, over that.
So I think what this is showing, Kyle, I'll be let you carry on in a second, right? But I don't think you actually appreciate film that much. You just like flashy noises and like stuff going on. Like I don't think you actually care about scripts and actors and.
So for me on this one, right?
My dad used to say to me, right? I'll just say this, right? My dad used to say to me, right now, my dad loves watching films and really gets fucking TV and stuff like that. And growing up, when I lived with my mum and dad, he would always say to me, "You should watch this, right?" And I'll never forget. He would always say to me, or I would say to him, "Oh, what's that you're watching?" And he would be watching Deadwood, right? And he would say, "No, you wouldn't like it. It's too much talking." And he would, and I'd be like 18, 19 at this point, and I'd be like, "What are you talking about?" But like, he knew that I'm just an idiot, and my brain hadn't quite evolved to concentrate on people acting and obviously just acting out a great scene. Kyle's older than me, and I think his brain still hasn't evolved He's basically a 19-year-old me who's only interested in gunfights and car chases and fucking all this stuff. And I think that's pretty much where you're at, Kyle. And you're what, a year and a half older than me or something like that.
Well, I'm 24.
Don't worry, you'll get there eventually. You will get
so
there.
when I watch movies, the part I probably enjoy the most part is the story aspect of it. But for watching this movie, I felt that there was a 10 out of 10 Christoph Waltz, and everyone else was just average. Like, I thought Brad Pitt was horrendous. Like, it's probably one of the worst films I've watched Brad Pitt in. I thought he was shit. And then you look at the other actors, and then I'm like, Baron Zemo was only cool because I recognised him from Marvel. Like, he wasn't that great in this movie. He was a smug prick, and he didn't even play it that well. Diane Kruger's character as well was not that great. I wasn't really overly fussed. The bar scene was very predictable. It seemed like you knew what was going to happen, and I wasn't quite for me. I was watching this movie, and I like foreign movies, I like subtitles and stuff, but I genuinely found myself getting bored watching it, and I was like, I'll pause that and come back to that later, because it's not captivating me whatsoever. And I think
this is what you've missed about the bar scene before you skip it. Right? I'll let you can move on to your next shouting on it in a second. The whole point is, we all know that it's going to go south, Kyle. You know, everybody.
Oh, no, I know that.
Right? But the whole point is how it's going to go south, and that's what you're. Do you mean there's no way that you can have those folks sitting in a Nazi bar without it's a Tarantino movie? It's going to go south. Shit's going to hit the fan. But it's all about how that's going to happen, and then how that's going to develop the story afterwards.
so. I read a bit of trivia. I read a bit of trivia about the bar scene and about the accent thing, and obviously how he talks and stuff is a red flag. And it says here that it's dripped in irony about the fact that Fassbender is a German born in Germany to Irish parents, raised in Ireland, that's now in London, but he's fluent in German as his first language. Irish is second, English is third, blah blah blah, right? That was 10 times more interesting what happened in that scene. Like, for me it was like, you could tell that his accent wasn't up to scratch as the same as the other ones, and it should have been a red flag for the first 5 words that he spoke in the whole bar. It shouldn't have taken 15 minutes to get to the point where they're suspect and worried and concerned about him. Like, if...
No, they didn't. The guy had his gun pointed at him the whole time. Wasn't it? They knew for the start. You're missing everything.
But we don't need 15 minutes of them blabbing through it then. Like, that could have got to the point a lot quicker. It felt like such a long drawn out scene that became boring.
Should they have just said Bazinga at the start? Go, look, I'm no German, Bazinga. You'd have liked it at that point. Put some canned laughter on top of it.
They should have had Danny DeVito run through and make some inappropriate joke, and then that would have been a bit funnier. But for me, I don't think this movie is as good as what people say it is. I think it's a decent movie. The opening scene's very good. It is very good. Christoph Waltz is incredible in it. He's probably the only person that goes above good. The rest are very, very average in it. I don't think my score will quite make up to what the rest of you guys are going to give it.
A bit essential, okay, but I thought you said that you're more interested in what the story is than what the actors are like in your point.
Yeah, no, I do. But then I don't think the acting was good in this. I don't think that the acting was very good.
I don't think the acting, apart from the one main actor, there wasn't, I didn't think like you, I didn't think Brad Pitt was brilliant in it, but that was because I think like when he started talking, I was like, what is this? I couldn't get over the accent to begin with. I was just laughing every time he spoke to begin with. But it was more the storyline that gripped me. It didn't really matter about I didn't think any of the other actors were out of this world, but it was more I was just gripped about it because of what was going on in the film. I thought, I'm sort of half backing you up when I say that, so. But not by your scoring.
I just think this has been put in. It's one of those movies that's been put on a pedestal as being this amazing masterpiece that everybody should love and appreciate. And you watch it, and it's one of those ones where, like, because it's Tarantino, it needs to be quirky, and you need to enjoy it more than what it actually does. And It's so good, but it's actually it's not that good.
See, this is a habit you've had already in this, Kyle. You've used that exact same line about 2 other movies we've had, and it's like a desire to go against the grain. Like, because other folk like it, you choose not to like it, and it's like a desire to be cooler, which it doesn't really come across that way. I mean, it was the exact same with The Departed. So I don't think The Departed is the most amazing movie ever, but you disliked it because other people liked it so much. And it's the same with this. It's like you expect something because other people think it's great. It's like, well, I'm going to look at all the reasons why I don't think it's great. And I don't know how you get through life like that. I would be really sad all the time.
But in the same terms, take 45 minutes out of this movie, and it probably is a really good movie. It doesn't need all the additional parts that are in it. But I would fight that back and say that this is the type of movie that you're told to like. That you will like this movie. I think everybody.
I don't think those movies exist, Kyle. It's in your head. This thing that.
No, this is in there. You'll like this because it's Tarantino. You'll like this because it's a Tarantino movie. Most of these movies aren't very good, to be honest.
I could count on one hand the amount of Tarantino films I've seen, and I just love this. Like, it doesn't make me want to go watch Reservoir Dogs. It doesn't make me want to go watch Pulp Fiction. It doesn't make me want to go watch fucking whatever else. I just like it in isolation because of what it is. It's got 2 of the best scenes I've ever witnessed in a film ever. They're just absolutely fantastic. The storyline's great. I thought the cast is great. Everything about it for me is just brilliant. Like, I think you're looking too much into who made the film and the history he's got with films and how his films are a bit kind of different and stuff like that, and they maybe change the way the cinema is just now. I think you need to just focus on the film itself and forget about the background noise.
But even focusing on the movie, right? So you take the Inglorious Basterds, right? Take the Basterds as the main component of this movie. They're shite the whole way through it. They're not very good. They're not very interesting. The interesting part is more about the Nazis and Christoph Waltz and his character. Give me 2. Wait, let me finish that. Let me finish it. Give me 2 hours of Christoph Waltz being a dick, and I'll enjoy it. Take Brad Pitt's whole character, his team, their plot, as flawed as it is and as shit as it is, out of the movie, and I'll really enjoy it. I just feel like this movie had an incredibly good element to it, surrounded with a lot of shite. And I think it's 45 minutes to an hour too long of that shite that I was bored by. But when Christoph Waltz and his character in that area came into the movie, I sat and watched it, I was gripped and enjoyed it. And then I found myself bored when he wasn't there, because I'm like, the rest of it doesn't live up to that. It then becomes a substandard movie, in my opinion.
That was a better little roundup than your other folk like it, so I didn't.
Well, what I'm trying to say though is that when you mention this movie to everybody, and everybody I've mentioned, and I've said loads because I've not seen it, and it's quite interesting to see the reactions. And I'd say 95% of people have said to me, "Oh, you'll love this because it's a Tarantino movie. You'll love this because Tarantino directed it." Tarantino. Nobody mentions Christoph Waltz, weirdly enough, about you'll love it because Christoph Waltz is amazing, or you'll love it because it's cool. You'll love it because it's Tarantino. And I'm like, right, well, I'll watch it and I'll see what I think of it. Like, I'm no one that hangs on to a certain actor or director depending on what they are like. I'd rather just say, tell you what, 45% of it's pish and it's boring. And it takes a long time to get through this movie. It felt the whole 2 hours and 33 minutes.
Wow.
Guys, I'll let you rant on any more there if you want before we jump onto scores and give trivia.
I'm ready to score.
I'm ready. I've just added on a 0.5 to my score.
I'm fucking going the full way with this.
Aye, mate, like, you fucked it for yourself, okay?
Yep.
I'm going to take 5 for mine now.
Guys, I'll mark it a fucking 0. I'll do it.
But then you wouldn't be being honest with yourself, Kyle, so...
Aye, you need to be true.
Well, neither of you guys then, if you are feeling the need to add it on there and the fear that it's going to get marked down below your expectations.
Very, very high anyway. Like, very high.
Daniel, you had a piece of trivia that you wanted to give out for this movie from earlier. Please do.
He doesn't deserve it, Daniel. Just keep it to yourself.
He doesn't deserve it.
Text us separately. Don't give it
I'll send it in the group chat. No, the character of the Bear Jew, who do you think was originally cast as that? But he had to stop it. Like, couldn't take it because he had another movie. That's our favourite type of trivia.
Eminem.
He's called the Bear Jew. But remember when Eminem was an answer? That was class. No, Adam Sandler.
Adam Sandler?
No way. I was going to say him next as a joke.
The part was written for Adam Sandler, and because he was doing Funny People and there was a scheduling conflict, he couldn't do it. So yeah, the part was actually.
Eminem wasn't Funny People with Adam Sandler.
Funny People, one of the worst movies ever made. He was in that instead of this.
We should review it. It'll be better than this movie. So some of the trivia that I've looked at on here is the original actor cast to play Michael Fassbender's character was Simon Pegg, who had to pull out of it to film The Adventures of Tintin.
Wow.
He'll be well chuffed with that.
I actually really like Simon Pegg. I don't think that would have been an absolute disaster. I think Simon Pegg.
I was more just saying, wow, the Adventures of Tintin. Has anyone seen The Adventures of Tintin?
I honestly didn't even know it was a movie.
No, I mean neither.
So some of the other things. Well, first, what I thought was interesting was that Tarantino considered abandoning the film whilst casting searched for someone to play Hans Landa because he feared that he'd written it unplayable until Christoph Waltz auditioned, and then they found the perfect actor for the role. This is the only movie that Brad Pitt made as a leading actor for the Weinstein Company on its previous iteration of Miramax. He said it had everything to do with wanting to work with Tarantino, nothing to do with Harvey Weinstein. He had animosity towards Weinstein stems from in the 90s when Pitt physically threatened the producer upon learning that Weinstein had unwanted sexual harassment on Gwyneth Paltrow, which was his then girlfriend. I mentioned this earlier about Michael Fassbender, about the irony about the bar scene with his with the accent and the layers to that. The first choice actor, apparently, although this contradicts the statement from earlier, for Hans Landa was Leonardo DiCaprio, but then Tarantino decided that he wanted a German-speaking actor to play the part, and then DiCaprio decided that he'll do his next film with Tarantino for Django Unchained. That was mentioned earlier. Just having a quick glance over there, a lot of the actors dubbed their own scenes for different languages for the movie as well. Baron Zemo done Spanish, Christoph Waltz did the German. There's lots of cameos in here. I did clock Samuel L. Jackson's voice when he came in as the narrator. Harvey Keitel was the voice of the American officer negotiating on the wireless radio with Rain and Landa. I won't go through any of the spoiler ones. There's too much to read through on there. But guys, let's let's score it.
That was fun.
Let's score the movie, guys. Before you score it, I'm gonna write down my score to see where I would land it. Go on, I've wrote my score down.
I want yours first, Kyle.
No, I'm gonna go last. Hunter first.
We can boycott this if we want.
Guys, I'm in charge of the stream here.
I'll just tell his score out when we make the edit for this.
I'll just leave it out. I'll just remove myself.
I was going to say, when I remember watching this the first time, and he met at the dessert scene where he orders the glass of milk for Susanna. I remember at that point he knows who she is.
Yeah, man.
And I remember just being on my edge of my seat, and again, obviously it wasn't the same this time, but there's just wee genius things like that throughout the film. But I'm not going to waffle on too much, but 4.25 for me.
Jesus Christ. 4.25 coming in from Hunter. Burnsy?
I was just going to mention Hunter as well, because he said in that scene as well, he's like, there's something I was being asked you, but it's been in my mind, and I thought at that point it was going to come up later in the film as well, and it just never touched again, which I was a bit surprised at. I'm going to go slightly lower than Hunter, but I'm going to give it a 4.
A 4 from Burnsy. Daniel?
I was tempted to increase it, but I want to stick with what I've got then down, which was a 4.25. I think it's watched better movies, but it's certainly up there.
A 4.25 from Daniel. Sean?
I'm giving it a 4.5. I'm always giving it a 4.5. It's just really good.
A 4. Here comes the nervous bit in there, guys. What I just want to before I go into my score, point out that and all the plus points that pretty much most of you guys have given have all been themed around Christoph Waltz. Not the movie as a whole, just Christoph Waltz.
I've only mentioned his name once.
So I did, and then also the bar scene was talked about a lot. He's not in that. I spoke a lot about how well they introduced the Bastards, and that scene set up everything about them. He's not in that either. So
Bastards were the worst. The Bastards were the worst part of this movie.
Yeah, Kyle, if that's how you feel, that's fine. But then he call us all liars, Ken. That's different.
Well, I'm also looking here on IMDb, of course, IMDb being the daddy of ratings, and IMDb rates it a 0.2 higher than Prisoners at an 8.3, so a 4.15 in comparison to Morons. For me, I'm going to score this at a 2.5. I'm going to give it a 2.5 because it's, like I say, Christoph Waltz is brilliant. The rest of it is very, very average. Very average. The storyline's not that great. The ending's not that great. It's a bit predictable. And that's my score. Burnsy, what does that give it an overall to?
It gives it a 3.9 overall.
A 3.9. Very generous 3.
Much to be fair, Kyle.
Sorry?
You've not destroyed the score that much.
But like I was saying, I did enjoy elements of it, and I'd say 50 to 60% of the movie I enjoyed. There was just a lot of shite in the movie. 3.9.
I feel like, see if we'd all shat in it, you'd say it was amazing. that's the way this would go.
Definitely. It took me 2.5 days to watch this movie. I definitely wouldn't have said it was amazing. There was so many times that I turned this off and then rewound it half an hour and been like, is that meant to be good? Like, what am I missing?
No wonder it felt long if you watch it. It probably took you watched 5 hours, must it?
Spent 5 hours looking for the fucking good parts and I couldn't find them.
Looking for the good parts, fucking hell.
A 3.9 brings this movie bang on par with The Fighter, which is definitely a much better movie than this. The Fighter comes in at 3.9, so this movie comes above The Trial of the Chicago 7 and above Short Term 12. Burnsy, one for you. Is this movie better or worse than No Country for Old Men?
You know the answer to that. Definitely better.
Definitely better. Well, the rest of the Mongos in here have decided that No Country for Old Men is better because that's got a 4. So
It is better.
No, you've decided it's better. If you actually gave it a decent rating, it would have been better than No Country for Old Men.
There you go, aye, that's true.
I feel like I should take my rating down a bit, to be honest. But I just think
based on your own description of Christopher Waltz is amazing, the rest of it is average. Giving it less than average would have been just lying to yourself, Kyle.
well, I could have went less than that because Brad Pitt's below average. He's shit.
The rest of it, then what would you score Christoph Waltz to boost it up by 2.5?
If I took away all the shite that went around them. Oh, take all the shite.
You've seen the rest of the film is average, so that would give the rest of the film a 2.5. Then you add on what you would score Christoph Waltz on top of it. Christoph Waltz tax boosts that up.
I was being generous to Brad Pitt. So Brad Pitt's a 0, Christoph Waltz is a 5. So they'll bring it into the middle there.
He's got to get out.
Come on. He was absolutely garbage. But guys, that brings us to the end of these two movies. So Prisoners coming in at a 2.45 from the Mongos. And listen, let me finish. Those same Mongos have given this a 3.9. I would certainly have scored it higher for Prisoners. Prisoners was a better movie than this for me this week. So guys, we're on to next week. We are finishing up Hunter's choices. Hunter, thanks very much for your choices. It's proven to be a controversial discussion to say the least.
Enjoyed it.
That's what we're here for.
We are moving on.
I've enjoyed a wee debate.
We are moving on to next week. Guys, we are going to introduce a new segment, and we've been discussing this in a little bit of a background about convincing Craig. We want to introduce a segment called Convincing Craig, and I think this would have been a really good one actually. I can see me pitching Inglorious Basterds as a better storyline to Burnsy than what you guys would be, and I'd certainly fucking win, that's for sure. So in the next week we're going to come up with some questions and some trivia that we're going to then do to pitch our own ideas towards, depending on the question, to convince Moron Craig. But before we do that, we're going to talk about next week. So next week's movies are a favourite of Sean. Sean is ecstatic about next week's movie choice. They are on the screen for you right now. We have Horror Week. So we have The Conjuring, which I've already watched, and I believe someone else has already watched it in here.
Yeah, I've watched them both already. I was choking on these.
So Daniel's already watched them both. Me and Burnsy have also watched The Conjuring. Hunter, have you been on them yet?
Not yet. I'll get to them at this point, some point this week.
Sean, have you watched any of them yet?
It's not been, there's not been enough daylight yet to watch it.
It's too dark
26 degrees outside.
But guys, we have...
Sean on Sunday watching them hungover as anything when there's daylight on. That's going to be the worst day of his life.
No. I might actually just take my laptop out into the car park into the sunny bit and just watch it
there. just Gavin.
I'll come up to the window.
The torture has already started with us in our little group chat discussing it. But we have Insidious and The Conjuring, which are our two movies selected by you guys from the horror movie. We did have a midweek debate. Do we add a third movie in of The Strangers? We ended up with a democratic vote where the no vote had won. But guys, if you as viewers would love us to watch The Strangers alongside this, please jump into our Instagram, send lots of messages on there, put the pressure on, and we'll try and watch a third movie.
It's been voted out. It lost in the semi-finals. It's been voted out. You can't just add it back in when you please.
I'm back on your side. I'm back on your side again, Kyle. Here.
I will not be watching it. Okay, and I will be reviewing my position within this group.
Well, okay, guys, I think that's fair. We have voted it, but what I would like to put out to you is we are considering our first watch along. Watch along is something that you guys can watch with us, and we think The Strangers would be the perfect movie for that. So if you want us to watch The Strangers along with you whilst we stream, see the reaction live of the Morons, then please let us know, because I'm sure Sean would love to, as he's rubbing the sweat off his neck at the thought of that. But guys, before we finish up on the stream, as always, we're going to turn to the wheel. We're going to spin and see what we've got coming up for us for next week.
It's romance.
Whilst it is rolling, Sean's just mentioned romance. Is there any other favourites that you guys want?
I don't want it. I just think that's what it'll be.
You think
I want my own picks, please.
I want my picks as well.
If I get my picks, I'm putting The Strangers times 15 on it. Okay, wheel is spinning. If I was to hopefully we get sci-fi. I think that'd be cool.
Aye, we've not had anything. We've not had any sci-fi type stuff.
So we have finished this week with a moron selecting, and we do have a moron selecting for next week. He's going to take it from having a really hard time watching horror movies into his own movies. Shawnee Boy is selecting the movies for next week.
Is that when I'm away? Hold on.
Listen, your annual leave is over. You've had far too much time off when it comes to stream.
I'll be here.
Sean, give us a little bit of an insight or thoughts or feelings of what type of movies to expect from you coming forward.
Horror movies.
There'll be absolutely no horror films. I don't know. I'll need to have a look tonight. I'm quite looking forward to it already, actually, having a look and getting some stuff put together. I don't know. It'll just be a kind of just an accumulation of different
rom-coms
types. Some shit.
I can imagine it being a really mixed bag.
I'm going to be very mixed. Very mixed.
Well, guys, that does take us to the end of tonight's stream. So we reviewed Prisoners and Inglorious Basterds. Just a recap at 2.45 for Prisoners, 3.9 for Inglorious Basterds. Horror Week is next week, and then we follow up by Moron Sean, who is going to give us his movies. So thank you very much. We do appreciate that. Hopefully you enjoyed that, and we will have a good night. See you later. Bye.
Bye.